Our Austrian
Grand Prix F1 driver ratings. Tommy, how you feeling about this one, my friend?
There's controversial moments, wasn't there for sure. There'll be a few spicy ones, I'm sure.
Oh, that's always when fun. Is there ever not spicy grades in our F1 driver ratings? Right, let's get into it and start with Gabriel Bortoleto. Started the race in 8th, finished 8th. It's a 10! Ding, ding, ding! I'm giving Gabriel Bortoleto a 10 out of 10. Now, I am going to cover off the fact that I thought P6 was possible. However, this is Gabriel Bortoleto. It's his first points of his entire Formula One career, and I think he did a phenomenal weekend. Not just a great race, he had a great qualifying as well. Started P8, finished P8. Yes, there was slightly some left on the table, but this is a grade where you take into account the driver's circumstances a tiny little bit. And that's what I'm doing before people say it's a 9. I did initially write a 9 and went, no, this guy's a rookie!
I've also gone for a 10 for the same reason. I think later down the line, there's going to be a bit more lenient to the Sauber and where they are. But this was Bortoleto's strongest weekend, and he's had it in him for a while. He has been there with Hulkenberg. He's just not had the points to show for it. But finally it came together, and yes, he could have potentially got more, but he held his own to grab an amazing points haul and just really good in qualifying as well. Like, my word, to qualify in the same row as Max, regardless of circumstance, is sensational.
The fans, they agree. 10 out of 10. Nico Hulkenberg started the race in 20th, finished 9th.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Nico Hulkenberg. A fantastic recovery drive. I saw a lot of people going, well, his drive was better, he should have deserved driver of the day. But at the end of the day, he qualified last while his teammate was in 8th. Sauber are flying, and they've scored more points than Red Bull in the last 3 races. What an absolutely insane thing.
They're cooking, mate. Maybe let Max Verstappen's a little bit washed. I'm just going to put that out there, Tommy. Like, obviously, I'm joking for those of you that don't know jokes. I am going to lock in a 9 out of 10 for Nico Hulkenberg. Also, it's not a 10 out of 10 performance because we are shifting our expectations of what Sauber is. And yes, as you said, Tommy, qualifying was very poor from Nico. We were questioning how on earth has he qualified last, but the strategy that Sauber went with was pretty perfect for Nico. He started on the soft tyres, utilised that well, and then went for 2 medium stints. And I think that second stint in particular was phenomenally impressive for Hulkenberg to just put himself in a really good spot come the end of the race. Goodness gracious me, we did not think this was going to happen at the start of the year. The fans gave him a 9 as well. Alex Albon started the race in 12th, did not finish. Yeah, this one's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I hate grading drivers that didn't finish because he was doing quite well. So I'm going to go for a 6 out of 10. Once again, I can't give higher because he literally didn't finish, and who knows where he would have finished. But he was doing a pretty good job up until that point, and I was fully convinced that Albon might have scored a point or 2. But sadly, Williams are just having a disaster of a run, so there you go.
I will go higher. I've given him a 7 out of 10. You can't go, in my opinion, lower than a 7, even though he's only done 20 laps. He was literally running 6th before his car broke down. So I will hard disagree with you there and be like our fans and get very annoyed that it's just 1 point difference. I think he had an amazing start. He obviously qualified well ahead of his teammate.
Tommy, how can you give a 7 out of 10?
How can you give 7 to someone for 20 laps of racing because he was 6th?
And the fans, well, they gave a 5 out of 10 for Albon. So there you go. Oh, goodness. It's a bit hot today. I can feel it. It's feeling good. Well, speaking of difficult grades, let's go to Carlos Sainz, who started the race in 19th and then did not start. Are we grading him for his weekend up until this point?
I was going to give him a 4, personally. He did have a qualifying session, and it's like a Stroll last week where he didn't show up, but then is a 5 in a weird way, almost too lenient because
he had a poor qualifying.
He had a poor qualifying.
But then I feel like we just have to be consistent from here on in, because I feel like sometimes we're like, well, we can't possibly grade him because blah, blah, blah.
But some people make sense to not grade, and some people do make sense. Because are you telling me that if... here's an example. So Lando Norris... he qualified 20th, and then he retires on lap 1 through no fault of his own. a 5 out of 10 completely skews his grade because you're like, well, he's had a shocker and was probably going to finish about 10th. So I do think it's a case-by-case basis personally.
So in that instance, you would not grade Norris?
No, I would grade Norris because he deserves to have a low, because then it skews the average. And I don't feel like Carlos's performance this weekend when he qualified 19th is deserving of like a chalk this one off, because I get when people are in the midfield or qualified about where they are, but I feel like it maybe has to be one lower, but that's just my opinion.
So we have to grade them if they've had a shocking qualifying, but if they've had a decent qualifying...
Or an amazing qualifying.
But if they've had an average qualifying, we don't grade them. Or we still do grade them.
It makes sense in my head.
From here on in, we just need to say that we're going to grade them full stop, like no matter what. Like this is... Unless they don't do qualifying or the race, and then they are chalked off, because... But
then someone
did,
if they've
crashed in qualifying, and then they didn't...
It's case by case.
Well, let's see what people say in the comments. I'm sure they will give us some feedback as to which they would like. Okay, so in that case, Tommy, you've gone for a 4 out of 10. Okay, because he had a poor qualifying. In which case, if we're grading one as qualifying, it's a 3 out of 10 from me. So there you go. He's starting last row of the grid, and then sadly his car set on fire. So that's sad. The fans, they don't agree. They've gone for a 5 because they thought it was straight down the middle.
And this is why there needs to be some kind of leniency, because Alex Albon running 6th, getting the same grade as Carlos Sainz, to me, in my personal opinion, is not remotely fair.
Isack Hadjar started the race in 13th, finished 12th. This one is an intriguing one, because I felt as though Hadjar had an incredibly anonymous race, but then he said afterwards that he was running and was going to finish in a very easy P8 and then picked up damage. So I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 and give him some benefit of the doubt due to this, because when you look at it, 15 laps or so before the end, he's running in 8th. And I don't think he's going to finish there because Bortoleto was on fresher tyres, but it's still, it is a bit of a mystery why he lost so much time. He said he got floor damage, and he was losing more than a second per lap. So I'm going to give a little sympathy there. It would have been a little bit lower, but I'm going to go with a 7.
I'm going to go for a 6 for Isack Hadjar. A long way off his teammate this weekend, which is uncharacteristic because he's been one of the drivers of the season, I think. And yeah, very anonymous. Yeah, he picked up floor damage in the closing laps, so I still think that's maybe late on, but yeah.
He said 15 laps before the end.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like a sensationally bad result for a V-carb. I think we'll get onto his teammate later, overachieved in it. But yeah, pretty anonymous and one to forget for Hadjar.
The fans gave Hadjar a 6 out of 10. Liam Lawson started the race in 6th, finished 6th.
I have gone for a 10 out of 10 for Liam Lawson. So good. I don't think it's being spoken enough about how good this drive was from Liam Lawson all weekend. I don't think it's being hyped up enough. He had a sensational qualifying to be essentially the best Red Bull in the field. I know Max didn't manage his lap, but it's still comfortably ahead of his teammate. And then even after getting shafted at the start, where you think that could easily have just ruined his chances of getting points, he managed to make that one stop work, hold off Alonso the whole race, and keep his tyres even better, Nick, than Alonso did, to not kind of lose a bit more time at the end.
For Liam Lawson, I've also gone for a 10 out of 10. I think it's an easy 10. Potentially, driver of the weekend. So consistently good. Qualifying, beautiful performance, and then to fend off Alonso the entire race. Whether Alonso was just trying to be dragged along by Lawson at one point, I'm not entirely sure. It feels like maybe that was the case. But back to Lawson. I mean, he's finished, 4 odd seconds behind Russell, which is ridiculous. I know that the Merc wasn't anywhere, but yeah, this is a confidence builder for Lawson, and I hope for his sake he can take it to Hadjar for the remaining half of the season and give RB and Red Bull a little bit more of a headache as to where they go for 26 and beyond. The fans gave him a 10 as well. Ollie Bearman started the race in 15th, finished 11th. Oh, Ollie, I need more from you. I'm going to go for a 6. 11th, I think, flatters the performance. He finished 15 seconds behind his teammate in the end. We saw some mistakes as well. I feel like every time the camera cuts to him, he knows, and then he just makes a mistake. Like it just feels
sees
like
himself
that
on the screen and gets
nervous. It's bizarre the amount that we see him sort of losing the car a little bit. I know the Haas isn't particularly easy to drive, but yeah, I mean, 6, I think, kind of represents the performance he had. Of course, you had Albon, Verstappen, Antonelli all out, and he still missed out on the points. His teammate scored one despite finishing behind him. Like, qualifying was reasonably hopeful, of course, out qualifying Ocon, but yeah, just not enough really for me to give him any higher than a 6. Like, it's okay.
I've gone for a 7 for Ollie Bearman. I think he's so close to making something happen, but yeah, making the odd mistake here and there, and we know that he can do better, but to be very close to points and out-qualify his teammate deserves a bit of credit, but I know there's more potential to be had from Ollie Bearman for sure, and I feel like we're saying that every single week. His time will come, though, for sure.
The fans gave him a 7. Esteban Ocon started the race in 17th, finished 10th.
I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Esteban Ocon. My word, if Esteban Ocon could sort his qualifying out, he would have so many more points, because the amount of times that he ends up in the points after seemingly being nowhere in qualifying and not feeling like he's really got that much pace. But I think in this situation, he's obviously got some great strategies, but his experience is showing as well, kind of keeping your tyres in check and the moves that he was making during that race to make it to the points when the midfield is so tightly packed and every point matters between those midfielders deserves a good amount of credit, I think. So yeah, I've gone for an 8 for Ocon.
I've also gone for an 8 out of 10 for Ocon. Yeah, he beat his teammate pretty comprehensively come the end of the race. Yeah, I agree with his qualifying. You can say that the Haas isn't good on a Saturday, but Ocon has been beaten by Bearman on a few occasions this year in qualifying. So there is some performance in there, and you would expect Esteban to have the edge over Bearman, especially on a Saturday. The fans gave him an 8 as well. Franco Colapinto started the race in 14th, finished 15th. Oh, this one is one of the contentious ones. It's one of those grades that you can get a bit harsh with if you really fancy it. I am going to go for. Oh my gosh, it's either a 3 or a 4. Which one is it? It's going to be a 3. It's going to be a 3 for Franco Colapinto. It was maybe going to be a 4 to have sympathy, but the performance wasn't great. And then, of course, he got that penalty for causing an incident, which was his fault. I'm not going to be too harsh on him for the fact that it happened, because he was in a fight with Tsunoda. He wasn't on his own, just da-da-da-da. Oh, Piastri, you're nearly in the wall. My apologies. Like, he was fighting Tsunoda. He tried to get to the slipstream, but didn't check his mirrors. It is a rookie mistake. But up until then, of course, he was beaten by Gasly in qualifying, and Gasly was having a much better race than what perhaps by the end of it's come across like. I'm surprised that Gasly finished in 13th. Gasly himself was convinced he had damage of some description. But yeah, for Colapinto, it's a disappointing weekend, I would say.
I've gone for a 4 out of 10 for Franco Colapinto. I think there'll be people, and I think I saw it on the ratings of people kind of jumping to a kind of 1 and a 2 grade, thinking that he had that kind of moment, didn't he, with Piastri. It, of course, wasn't a great look, but as I said in the main race podcast, it is a rookie mistake. He was battling another car and just, was unaware. But I'm not going to downgrade him massively, like really harsh, like it was the worst mistake ever of all time. When he was actually running before Yuki Tsunoda yeeted him at that corner as well and crashed into him. He was only, he was racing behind the two Hasses and Gasly. So also, I do feel like there needs to be a bit of lenience that Alpine are literally last in the Constructors' Championship as well. Like, their car is shocking. So I've gone for a 4.
All right, Tommy, you've convinced me. I was a little bit too harsh. I've gone for a 4 out of 10. The fans, they don't agree. They've gone for a 3. So there you go. Pierre Gasly started the race in 10th, finished 13th.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. Again, he's another driver that's so difficult to rate because he's driving an Alpine that I thought would be so much better this season. Maybe he's done well to get in the top 10. He was running quite high up at the start, of course, risking it on the soft, but he just fell away. And my word, Alpine are just in absolute crisis. It feels a long time ago to think that we were discussing, maybe after testing, that Williams and Alpine look like best of the rest, and Gasly, end of last year was scoring these amazing results, and now Alpine, comfortably last in the championship, and the only points they've scored have been through Gasly.
I've also gone for a 6 out of 10 for Gasly. He was running superbly well, I think up in 6th at the start of the race on the soft tyres, which we thought, okay, all right, Gasly, we're on to some points here. This could be something good, but then just fell away massively. But I think it has to be said that he was putting a car that didn't belong to be up there with a pretty aggressive strategy. And as I mentioned on the Colapinto point, he was convinced that there was something wrong with the stint. He did say that maybe there wasn't something wrong with the car, but either or, the car is a bit of a dog at the moment, clearly. The fans gave him a 5. Lance Stroll started the race in 16th, finished 14th. What an anonymous race from Lance Stroll. What a surprise. I've gone for a 4 out of 10.
Was he even racing?
Was he even racing? Finishing 14th in a race where 4 drivers didn't finish, all of which you would assume would have beaten him. So there's that factoring in as well. I don't think I ever saw him. I genuinely don't. I don't really have much to say about Lance Stroll. Struggled with tyre degradation early on. They changed their strategy due to that, according to the Aston Martin website. But it's a 4.
I've gone for a 5 for Lance Stroll, just very anonymous. I've gone straight down the middle because I guess his only saving grace is that maybe like a Colapinto or whatever, he's not made a mistake and got a penalty, which he's done in the last kind of few races and things. We'll get onto his teammate, but I think it's more Alonso overdriving that car, but then that would be me saying that, of course.
Of course it would, absolutely. Fernando Alonso started the race in 11th, finished 7th.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Fernando Alonso. Another brilliant performance from him. I don't think he should have got P7 in the end. I think it was impressive that he managed to hold off Bortoleto. When I mentioned, and I think you did as well on Twitter, that Alonso is one of the best defensive drivers, and people kind of going, oh, it's Bortoleto. And I'm sorry, but you need context of Bortoleto was on much fresher tyres. Quite a lot of other drivers, in my opinion, would have kept Bortoleto behind. Alonso was basically a sitting duck at the end, and there were quite a few laps, and he just placed his car perfectly but not dirty or dangerous, and I think that's the most impressive thing about Fernando Alonso. He just places his car in the exact kind of right places to defend.
Fernando Alonso, I've gone for a 9 out of 10 as well. Really solid performance. I think he was over half a minute clear of Lance Stroll, who was just stuck in the pack behind Gasly at the end, I think it was. But Alonso shouldn't have finished 7th. Bortoleto should have easily had him. It went on paper, obviously, but he drove incredibly well from a defensive standpoint. I mentioned earlier on in the episode, I think that he was being very clever with Lawson. He said after the race he didn't think he was as quick as the Saubers or the Haas's, so he definitely didn't think he was as fast as the Racing Bull, probably. So he utilised the fact that he was in DRS of Lawson for a very long time to sort of just drag him along to stay in that P7 for a very long time, and the one stop was the correct decision as well. So overall, I don't think he should have been scoring that many points, but here we are. So yeah, it's a 9 out of 10 from me. The fans gave him an 8. Kimi Antonelli started the race in 9th, and he did not finish because he had no front left wheel, I believe, after turn 3. It's going to be a 2 out of 10 for Kimi Antonelli. Big rookie error. Some people might go, give him a 0, give him a 1. It is a massive error. However, there is some small leniency of him being a rookie and the way in which it happened. He's speaking about losing the rear under braking, things like that. Look, he misjudged it by 25 meters maybe, and it had a catastrophic ending. So I'm going to give him a 2. It's still a very harsh grade, and he will, fingers crossed, not do that again.
Indeed, I've gone for a 2 out of 10 as well. Poor weekend from him. Not great in qualifying, and then to make that error, it was an absolutely enormous error. A little bit of leniency from the fact, as you say, that the way it happened, the fact he's a rookie, and also, lap 1, chaos, but it's still a 2 out of 10. It's still a poor grade and a deserving grade because it's a huge mistake to make, and I hope he bounces back from it because after Canada, we were really kind of hyped to see what he could do next.
The fans gave him a 2 as well. George Russell started the race in 5th, finished 5th.
I've gone for a 7 out of 10 for George Russell. This is a really difficult one to grade, actually. No, I'm going to give him an 8. I'm actually going to give him an 8.
Boom.
It is so difficult to grade George Russell in this, because he is just sat in no man's land where the Mercedes wasn't any good, but he still picked up a top 5 result that you have to give him credit for. What more is there to say about his race? He just drove around on his own and bagged some more points.
I am going to give him a 7. There was nothing special about this weekend. Yes, there were limitations with the car, but we have to. We can't sort of. I can't give him any higher than that, just purely because he was so far, not just off Norris and Piastri, but also the Ferraris as well. And it was very much a 7 drive, an incredibly anonymous race. The bloke was probably falling asleep at the wheel with how boring it must have been for him. He was in no man's land. It's definitely not going to be as hot this weekend for the British Grand Prix. I'm already seeing weather reports that it might be raining for Sunday, so that may well work out for Mercedes. I just hope it doesn't rain at 10:30 a.m, Tommy, when we're on the main stage, like it did last year. Come and see us if you want to. If you're at Silverstone on the Sunday, 10:30 a.m, as I say, on the main stage. The fans gave George Russell a 7. Yuki Tsunoda started the race in 18th, finished 16th. Goodness gracious me. It's going to be a 2 out of 10 for Yuki Tsunoda. It was a really poor weekend all the way through. He is mystified as to why he's so slow. You can see it in the post-race conferences and things like that. It's really sad to see. He finished 2 laps down, 35 seconds off the back of Colapinto, who he yeeted during the race. Gets a penalty for that. Overall, shocking. And we know that this isn't what Yuki Tsunoda is capable of, but it's what he's able to extract out of that Red Bull. I can't give him any higher because he's in this stricken Red Bull, so that is what I'm going for.
I am painfully going to give Yuki Tsunoda a 1 out of 10. It's so painful to watch. It's easy to jump on the fact that second Red Bull, we all know, we have this conversation every single week, but just because the second Red Bull is difficult to drive, there's a driver in it, and that's the person that's, colliding with Stroll, crashing with Colapinto. Do I think that many other particularly young drivers on the grid could jump in that car and do better than 18th in qualifying? Maybe not, but I have to grade him based on the fact that he's also having a complete mess of crashing into people needlessly, making mistakes and things as well. And this is what hurts so much when I'm giving him a 1 out of 10 and I'm seeing started 18th, finished 16th. I think he'd be absolutely cooking in that V-Carb. I think he'd bagged a load of points. He'd be up there with Hadjar, who's been really good, but also with more experience. We saw that at the start of the season, how good he was doing. And you think he gets to the end of the season after having that season in the V-Carb, he'd be absolute hot property for many of the other teams on the grid. But now, no one's going to want to take him, and that is just the brutality of the Red Bull program.
Exactly. The fans gave him a 2. Max Verstappen started the race in 7th, didn't finish.
Now, this is one where I will protest the NA grade. I've seen a lot of other people with their ratings go for an NA, and the reason I think it has to be an NA is because essentially he's the one that's been yeeted out the Grand Prix, so it's not his fault, and he did have a completely anonymous qualifying, so I will throw that one into the mix.
So now we're doing an NA?
Well, yeah, because it's correct.
Okay, correct objectively. Interesting. Okay, so Verstappen, yeah, he had his qualifying affected. He couldn't put his last lap in due to a yellow flag, and then he was yeeted out of a race. So yeah, how can you possibly judge him? That's a good point. I will pass the NA. The NA has been passed by the stewards of Matt and Tommy. Okay, the fans, well, they gave him a 5. I don't think they can even vote NA, can they? But maybe we include in the fan ratings NA, so people can also say their piece from here on. Lewis Hamilton started the race in 4th, finished 4th. I have gone for a 8 out of 10. I think it was a pretty decent weekend overall for him in comparison to Charles Leclerc. I felt like on pure pace on a Saturday, he was pretty close. And then Sunday, there was a mistake in there. I remember seeing it. He went a bit wide, lost 3-4 seconds. But overall, he wasn't far off. Surprised to see him not go for a different strategy call, but perhaps it was overridden just purely because it was fighting the other Ferrari, or ignored due to fighting the other Ferrari. Yeah. But I think it's a better weekend than perhaps the timesheets would suggest, being half a minute off the lead. But no one was getting close to those McLarens, and I think Ferrari have, in the sort of midst of all of this, actually taken a small step forward, because I'm seeing that Charles Leclerc, for example, being 20 seconds off Norris as a kind of win, which is mad.
Yeah, I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton as well. They've kind of made a bit of a step forward. I saw on Ted's notebook him kind of talking about the whole lift and coast situation, that they're in a weird situation now where they basically don't want to damage the floor anymore to end up being disqualified like they are in like of course happened in China for excessive wear. So they're kind of having to be a little bit more careful, which is probably the most annoying thing in the world when you're watching the two McLarens be 20 seconds clear while also racing each other for the entire race. Must be very irritating. And Hamilton, it does feel like he's getting there. He's had races where he's really struggled and been a long way behind Charles. And I know he's had an absolute chasm to fall into between Charles Leclerc and George Russell, but it's still a good effort and a much better qualifying from him as well. So, yeah, signs of progress, I think.
For sure, and the fans gave him an 8 as well. Charles Leclerc started the race in second, finished third.
I have gone for a 9 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc. Maybe on paper you see started second, finished third. It is the best he could do. I'd have loved to have seen him be able to challenge at the start. I know it was probably a false hope. I think he would have finished third anyway, even if he'd somehow got Lando. But I did think the start was the only chance for him to maybe at least challenge a McLaren at some point or do something. And for someone that is so good at wheel-to-wheel racing and his racecraft being such a strong point, I think he played the start quite bad in terms of letting Piastri go. I mean, thankfully he did, because it allowed the amazing McLaren fight. But it can't be a 10 because, in my opinion, the start let him down. But still a very, very strong weekend and a higher 9.
But you can't have higher 9s. It'll go down as a 9 in the score sheets. I've also gone for a 9 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc. Yeah, second on the grid. I don't think anyone would have expected, seeing that on paper, that he'd be over half a second off pole and starting on the front row, but that was the qualifying session we had. And then, again, the race pace of the Ferrari is not bad. Like, it's not horrendously off the McLarens, but it's, 20 seconds by the end of a 70-lap race far off. As for the start, I've watched it back a few times, and I think it looks worse than it is in terms of where he positioned his car. He got a better start than Lando. He can't just completely and just jolt to the left to then try and get the outside line. So he's kind of, as he said after the race, that's his sort of position heading towards turn 1. So having a better start kind of scuppered him a little bit. And then he, of course, lost that position to Piastri, which I don't think he ever would have been able to keep anyway. Yeah, I'm kind of glad in a weird way that we got to see the McLaren's battle, because that was what was always going to happen anyway. So big up to Charles Leclerc for allowing that for entertainment purposes. The fans gave him a 9 as well. Oscar Piastri started the race in third, finished second. I'm going to go for a 9 out of 10. It was a really good weekend, hence the 9. He was screwed in qualifying, so I'm not downgrading him for that. But the win was possible. It was. There were a couple of occasions where, of course, he got really close, one of which he got ahead. Perhaps, I mean, the gamesmanship from the pair of them was great to watch. Lando came out on top just with how he positioned his car, how he allowed himself to have DRS down that second straight. Oscar, he knows, he knew as he spoke afterwards in the media, that he said, with hindsight, maybe I could have done a couple of things a little bit differently when I tried to get past. But in the moment, you've got to take an opportunity when it comes, and that's what he did, right? You want to be ahead. But Austria is such an awesome track for the fact that just because you've overtaken into turn 3, it does not mean it's over. So, yeah, it's still a great grade. Oscar will not be too unhappy with a second place. He still leads the championship, and I loved watching it.
It was incredible to watch. Yeah, I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri as well. Yeah, he had his moment and didn't take it, but I can't give him any lower than a 9 because he was really fighting the whole race. He looked very, very quick. He was all over the back of his teammate. He was able to close a gap again, even after McLaren obviously opened that gap out, which we've spoken about in the race podcast, why they did that. And Oscar managed to close in again. I think that race weekend kind of, so far at least, we'll see how it progresses at the end of the season, but kind of backed up my theory that we'll see a race when Oscar Piastri is the one behind Lando Norris, because he's quicker in race pace and a bit more kind of willing to attack, and that's exactly what happened in that situation. One thing that was quite funny actually that I saw Christian Horner mention that we kind of alluded to on the watch along. Imagine how it feels for all the other teams watching them struggle on their tyres and then seeing the McLarens racing each other in dirty air for ages. Like Oscar just sat there and you thought he's going to back off at any moment, and he could do it for lap after lap after lap and still didn't kind of have any kind of tyre problems really, other than the flat spot that he gave himself. So yes, here's to many more of those.
Yeah, your point about Piastri having better race pace, I don't know if that's absolutely accurate for this one, just purely because
agree to disagree.
No, let's debate.
Okay,
that's what this podcast is for. We are allowed to disagree. I think Lando sort of highlighted this as well, is that in that first stint, obviously Oscar is able to get DRS, and he had that initially at the start, and it's worth 6-7 tenths a lap. There's 3 DRS zones. He can utilise it really well to be able to stay within that. Of course, he struggles in dirty air in other parts, but the DRS is extremely powerful around here. We saw that. And then, obviously, we haven't mentioned Lando's slight damage that he was running as well. So it's not like it's an absolute like-for-like comparison. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think they were very similar in race pace if you were to take everything into account, because Oscar was getting screwed by traffic Lando was, getting screwed by traffic left, right and centre, wasn't he, as well? So there are things and many parts to play here. What is your response, Tommy?
That I completely disagree, and Oscar Piastri is definitely quicker this season. And
I was talking about this race.
Yeah, I still think he was. He was 4 seconds behind and caught up. That's not DRS, is it?
Was tyre delta?
Not at the end. Basically,
but Lando was getting caught. Catching traffic at horrendous times. Oscar was getting DRS beautifully.
Oscar got not punted off, but like Colapinto put him almost in the wall.
Oh, he lost like 7 tenths.
Well, I'm not going to agree with you. I think Oscar was quicker.
Okay. Perfect. Well, that's absolutely fine. But we have to take into account, we have to say that, Lando had damage. It's unfair to say that it was like for like. So there you go. Well, look at that. Mum and Dad are fighting, and but it's fine. We're okay. People want disagreements.
Exactly.
It's not personal. It's lovely.
It's not.
And I'm not getting red because I'm arguing with Tommy. It's literally 31 degrees in my room. So the fans gave Oscar Piastri a 9. But yes, I think Oscar has very good race pace for the rest of the season, Tommy. I do agree with that. I was just more specifically speaking about Austria. Lando Norris started the race in first, finished first.
A 10 out of 10. I think that there's a time and a place to kind of have a go at Lando for his driving ability, and this weekend is not one of them. I've seen so many people kind of trying to downplay what he did in that wheel-to-wheel battle with Oscar and things. The switchback was great, the way he did that. Yes, he made that error which allowed Oscar in, but he drove a really, really good race, and I think he deserves a massive amount of credit for it, after especially what happened in Canada, of course, as well. He could have very easily been very, very timid indeed, but no, they raced hard and fair, and Lando, at a circuit that he does love, managed to, brilliant in qualifying, and then again in the race.
I agree. I've gone for a 10 out of 10. Mum and Dad are back. But yeah, it has to be a 10 for Lando. Qualifying, I think, was underplayed by some people. I think it was a lap that was not getting beaten by anybody, even if there were clean laps for Verstappen and Piastri at the end. Lando was quickest, I think I read, in every single session with the ones he took part in. So obviously he didn't take part in FP1 as well. So yeah, Lando was brilliant. He made a mistake, one that could have been race-defining and race-ending, as he dipped his wheel into the gravel in the penultimate corner as well as the last corner as well. But he defended well after that mistake, and then with all that said and done, Lando did a phenomenal job and fully deserves a 10 out of 10. And the fans agree. They've gone for a 10. So who is our P1? My P1 is going to be... I'm going to give it to Lando just purely because it's a weekend that he absolutely needed. The championship pressure on his shoulders. He could have easily fallen over a race win behind Piastri, but he delivered with a phenomenal pole position and then translated it into the victory. So there you go.
For me, it's not even close. It's Liam Lawson. I think he's the only faultless driver all weekend. And huge amount of credit to Liam Lawson. It was a brilliant driver, and who knows, might even save his career.
There you go. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this driver ratings. And, of course, we had some contention. That was beautifully...
We love to see it.
We love it.
That's
Absolutely
the whole point of driver ratings. It would be very boring if we just said the same thing.
Yes, and I'm sure there are comments, and we look forward to reading them, as long as they are beautifully crafted in a positive and nice manner. And we will see you... Well, yeah, this week, of course, is the British Grand Prix. We're on the stage, as I mentioned, main stage, 10:30 a.m. on Sunday. Come and see us. Come support the P1 fam. That would be amazing. Or the P1 fam, be there for the P1 boys. Either or.
Yeah, bring on Silverstone. Excited to see Formula One cars IRL again.
I can't wait.
Feels a while.
It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Of course, there's not going to be any live streams, but we'll have every other bit of content. But we are going to be live streaming some bits and bobs. So just watch out on our social media for those announcements. And we will see you very soon. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.
Bye.